You're listening to FEIStv, a podcast exploring the rich tapestry of Irish dance and the community who loves it. Hosted by Julia Topper, ethnomusicologist, Irish dancer, music educator, and writer, and Kristo Sween, a 20-year Irish dance dad, live camera director for FEIStv, and operations manager at the Celtic Junction Arts Center.
Hey, how's it going, Kristo?
Good. How are you, Julia? It's good to see
I'm
you.
good. I'm good. I have
Good.
a little bit of a cold today, so unfortunately our listeners and viewers are gonna hear my cold voice and everything. But
Very,
you know,
very resonant then.
yeah, there was nothing that was going to make me miss this conversation with our guests. So I
Oh
was,
man.
fighting through.
Yeah, same. I'm glad it's freezing cold January weather
Yep.
in Minnesota here where I
Oh
am,
my gosh.
and so yeah, it's not only is it cold and flu season, but right, we got to kind of keep moving.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm super excited about this conversation too. We're going to be talking with folks that are fairly well known in the Irish dance world, Sean O'Brien and Liam O'Sullivan of the FEIS app and other things, folks that you see playing at FEISes all over the world.
Yeah.
They agreed to sit down and talk with us today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm one of their biggest fans. I know you are too. I think we're both very fortunate to get to listen to their music all the time, but also, we're friends with them. And how did you meet them, Kristo? I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know that story.
it's a good question. I mean, I listened to Anton and Sully CDs as my kids were practicing CDs.
CDs,
That's
yeah.
how long my kids have been involved in Irish dance, 20 years or so, as a Irish dance dad. And so listened to those CDs, and then it was just wild that, here in St. Paul, my kids have danced with O'Shea Irish Dance. And so Cormac O'Shea has known these guys forever. And so it was through following Cormac around to to FEISes while my kids were dancing, and he happened to be playing with Sean one time, and met Sully that way as well. And as those guys came through town, so my connection to them comes through Cormac here at O'Shea Irish Dance.
I think the first time I heard Sean's music, I was actually doing my field work in Tokyo. And the dance teacher for the school that I was at the time pulled out his FEIS Music 3 album and played the first hornpipe track. And I was like, what is this? This is phenomenal. And then I got lucky enough to, meet him. I was doing my field work at the 2017 Nationals in New Orleans. And I was in a complete panic because I was writing my dissertation and I did not have a music chapter yet. And I had to defend that thing in 2 months. And I don't know why I kept putting off writing the music chapter because I'm an ethnomusicologist, but I kept putting it off. And finally, I couldn't put it off anymore. And so I emailed Sean. I found his artist website, and he was like, "Yep, come on, bring your microphone. Let's see what happens." And he just threw himself in to help me as much as he could. He got me interviews set up with every single musician that was at the major, and he's just been, a guiding force since then. And I've been so lucky to see Sully at so many majors as well, and he's just, their second family now. They've kind of him and Sean and all the musicians have kind of adopted me. I've been really fortunate for that. So getting to do a conversation like this with them where we get to go even more in depth about their live and their music and their passion for all of this is just
right.
awesome.
Yeah,
So,
we're definitely going to get a taste. Listeners are going to get a taste of that generosity.
Yeah.
It's just baked into both of those guys. So
yeah,
let's jump into the convo.
let's do it.
So, all right, guys, welcome to the pod. Sean and Sully are here with us today. We're super psyched. We've known you guys for a long time. It's funny to think back on how, these let's use the word tapestry again. I kind of like
Yes.
the word tapestry, but how these, sort of relationships come up. But I didn't know you from the beginning. And so I think it would be interesting to hear each of you talk about, how did you get into this musical FEIS world kind of thing? And Sean, why don't we start with you and just sort of walk us through how you came to all of this?
Yeah, it's been one of those stories that you couldn't write, but I think that's kind of like that for most people. when you look back at whatever they've done in their lives. And I got into it through my sister dancing. My sister's a few years younger than me. With a name like Sean O'Brien, you can probably tell there's some, despite my Aussie roots, there's some Irish lineage there in my past. My father was very interested in that and had been tracing our history. Found that we were descended from Irish people that had moved out in the 1860s out to Australia. He wanted to get us involved in something. There was a bit of Irish dancing on the telly. Happened that there was a school nearby. Got my sister into it, and I was the brother that was dragged along initially. As is the case for a lot of brothers and sisters out there. I was quite sporty though, and so my sister would practice a lot at home. She was a good dancer, and Mum used to practice her a lot, and I inevitably started leaping around with them and learning it. And then as I got a little bit older, I got interested in doing it and came to dancing quite late. And around that time, my sister was kind of competing at the national level. She competed in the Australian Championships. I think it was 95-ish, something like that. And I went along, and there were live musicians there, which was not the norm in Australia at the time. There were no FEIS musicians on the scene. And it was Jerry Conlon and Seamus O'Sullivan, two, kind of legends really in the Irish dance music space. Back in those days, they were the boys. And I instantly knew, watching these lads play and listening to them, I didn't know anything really about the music in detail. And I was only starting out on a classical piano journey at that point in time, but I just wanted to do it. And 2 weeks later, Dad bought me a $250 accordion that had a leaky bellows. And it happened that there was an amazing accordion teacher in Brisbane, like a world-renowned player, and she was teaching. And I started getting sort of classical accordion lessons and dipping my toe into Irish music. And I think around 2.5 years after that, 3 years after that, when I was 17, I played my first FEIS in Australia, and have been doing them with different degrees of intensity ever since. But that's really how I got into the music, specifically the Irish dance music thing, and I love it.
2 years seems like a super short time from starting to playing your first FEIS.
I was pretty obsessed, and so I was practicing 4 to 6 hours a day.
Wow.
Like even with school and everything and sport and dance and all the rest of it, I would literally wake up in the morning, play for an hour or two before I go to school. I lived on the back of the school, so I could walk through the back gate. And after school, I couldn't put the thing down. So I was really, really, really determined. And at the end of that 2.5 years, I wasn't playing accordion the way I'm playing accordion now.
Sure.
But yeah, there was just a lot of volume of playing squeezed into that 2 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Sully, top that.
My Irish dance music journey happened quite late. I haven't been in the Irish dance world nearly as long as Sean. I got into Irish music at around the age of 10 or 11, and it's a miracle that it happened. Really, I grew up in East London. The youngest of 5 siblings, and all of my brothers are mad into boxing, amateur boxing. They run the local amateur boxing club. My brother Danny fought at world level. And the reason I bring that up is because music wasn't really in my early life a huge part of the household. My dad would just be obsessed with trad music, and it would just be on in the car or on in the house, but that was really just his thing. My brothers didn't have it. They were mad into the boxing, and my sister was older and had left the house before I knew really what was happening in the household. But then in my 8, 9, 10 years of life, my dad started introducing me more and more to Irish dance, Irish music, and he would take me to FLAs, which are like Irish dance competitions, Irish music competitions. And I would make friends there, but I wasn't. He was more there for the music, and he just took me along. And then one day he played a video of an incredible musician by the name of John Whelan, and John was just playing the button accordion in a pub, and my dad asked me if I'd like to try it. So a few miles down the road away from that was two brothers called Michael and Joe Searson, and I started lessons, I think, just before my 11th birthday. And I just instantly fell in love with the button accordion. But in that area of London, and with my life being so heavily involved in boxing, I couldn't tell any of my school friends about it. I couldn't tell any of my friends in the boxing club about it. It was really something that I just did on the side. And then made some wonderful friends in the Irish music scene, in the Flowers, who I'm still friends with today. But I kind of just did the Flowers a few times a year at regional level, and then the Flakio is in August, and I would compete at that every year up until about the age of 16 or 17. And during that time, the friends that I met in the folk scene in the trad world asked me if I wanted to start a band. So we started a little folk band called Misha that did quite well. And as the band grew, we managed to get a gig at a festival called Dranuta Folk Festival in Belgium. And I was around 20 years of age at the time, and the manager of the band said that we needed a pianist to fill out the sound. So in walks Anthony Davis. Never met anyone from the Irish dance world before. He was just the pianist, and we clicked. And up until that point, I'd never seen or consciously been aware of an Irish dancer. And he told me about this. He plays FEISs, and I really wasn't interested. It was like, oh, great. And I remember being at Warwick Folk Festival and him showing me a clip of his album Perfect Timing. And that was kind of my first introduction, I'd say, to Irish dance music. And then he asked me to play my very first FEIS, which was Eilish Boyle O'Dowda's FEIS. And I actually played with a woman called Anne Murray, and I knew one heavy jig. And it was a really different thing for me, because in the trad world, you don't really play jigs in sessions and in gigs. The jigs are flying along. To play a jig at 73 was really alien to me at the start. And then I actually got my first FEIS with Anthony Davis. It was Linda Ball Hogan's FEIS. And again, by that point, I think I knew 2 or 3 heavy jigs. So bless him, he just rotated them all day. And then I think after that FEIS, I committed to Anthony that I would learn the set dances and I would learn more tunes to build my repertoire that was specific to Irish dance music. And I remember being on a stag do in Blackpool about 6 months later, and I get a phone call from Sean O'Brien or Anthony that had just spoken to Sean, and he said, you've got the Australian Nationals. So that was my third FEIS.
Like you do.
So I really tried to commit there to learning as much of the music as I could and dedicate myself to it. And then I became closer with Sean, and I started building relationships with the other musicians in the scene. And once you're in it, there's no turning back then. And I've been playing ever since that time. And I've been lucky enough to play with Sean, Paul O'Donnell, Brian O'Sullivan, and Anthony Davis. Largely, those are the people I played with, and I've been very lucky to sit next to those people. You know.
What are your brothers?
I got to add something to that that story as well. The reason that I pushed to get him that gig was I'd met Sully a couple of times. I think at the Great Britons, he'd been kind of floating around, hanging out with Anton, and there'd been sessions in rooms, just trad sessions, and I heard him play. And as soon as I heard he was getting into FEIS, okay, he might have only known a handful of heavy jigs and was learning the sets, but all I had to do was hear him play. That I was like, if this lad sticks around, we need to get him. We need to get him firmly into the scene, and that was why at the time for the Australian Nationals, I had a relationship with the board where I'd kind of recommend people and what have you, and it was like we got to get this fella out there. So
I want to talk more about that like what was that, but before we get to that, Sully, so your brothers must know now
Yes.
about the music.
Hey,
So now what's the conversation like?
it's it's a clash of two worlds, really. They really want to support the scene, but it's not them.
Yeah.
They just don't get it. They come to sessions sometimes, and I've sometimes looked across at them when a session's been happening, and you can tell they're an alien presence. They're respecting it, and they know that something incredible is happening, but they just don't get it. In the same way as some people, when they watch a boxing match,
Sure.
it's just not for them.
Yep.
But they've always been really supportive of me. I come from a working class family where the thinking was you leave school, you get a job, you work hard all your life. And that's, my family are incredibly hard workers.
Yep.
But the idea that someone could be a musician was never on the table.
Mhm.
And so in my adult life, I had to get these proper jobs and do the music on the side. And whilst there was some great lessons in there, that I think I was always pulled back. Music is my happy place. If I'm sitting at a fest next to Sean, I don't care whether it's an 18, 20-hour day. It's what I want to do.
Yeah.
It's and I feel incredibly blessed now that I was able to transition in life and make this my living, you know.
I think that's the greatest, and I recognize too. We see, like, I wasn't necessary. I mean, I was excited when my kids started dancing, and that was 20 years ago. But I didn't get it, and I maybe was one of those guys that was just like, I'm not. This is wild. I'm not into this at all. But I'm here for my kids. Okay, so 20 years later, here I am making a freaking podcast about about it. Like that's what happens to some people. And so it's interesting to hear it framed up that way. Like, it does just draw you in. I still think of like some of the, dads and siblings that I see. It's just like, it's the last place they want to be, but they're there, they're supporting, the family. They're making the most of it. But yeah, it's not for everybody. That's for sure. So Sean, let's go back to that. Let's go back to that, like, what is that? What did you see?
Well, I think with Irish dance music in particular, I've always been, I maybe haven't been consciously clear of this, but in the, over the last 10, 15 years, as I've journeyed more into making and producing music, I've become clearer about what the important elements are within Irish dance music, like what makes great Irish dance music great Irish dance music. And I have a background in electronic music. That's kind of where I broke ground when it came to learning production. And electronic music, a lot of the times associated with dance, whether it's in clubs or festivals or what have you, and whether you're DJing something or producing a track, you have to be very sensitive to how people are feeling the music. Are they moving to the music? And not only within a track itself, but across the span of an entire gig or a set, like an hour or 2 hours long. You're taking people on a journey, and it's a journey of movement, basically. Mm-hmm. So there's actually a lot of parallels when you take that language and put it into Irish dance. It's a journey of movement. People are up there and they're moving around, and there's a predictable pulse, and there's a tempo to it. So there's great melody out there and great harmony and all of that stuff I absolutely love, but the music has to have an inherent pulse that makes you want to move. And when I heard this dude play, I mean, he's pulse. He's like a machine gun on mixed with a button accordion. And I mean that in a positive way. It's just, it's relentless, and you can't help but bounce around to it. And when I heard he was jumping into the scene and I'd heard his playing, I was like, this is going to work. And then, it was a few years before we actually got to sit and play with each other, because most of the time I'm playing accordion myself, mm-hmm. In a hall beside him. But there was an opportunity at Great Britain's. We were kind of paired together for a day, me playing piano and And that's my approach to piano as well, is that the piano, as much as you've got to get your chords right and there's a whole journey there, that's sort of over here. It's like this thing needs to have some groove. And groove's what makes people move. And as soon as we played together, like after that day, it was like there's a real synergy here. And it's a synergy I'd felt years before I'd ever sat down and played a note with him.
I remember, talking to you both when I was doing my research for my dissertation. And one of the moments that struck me, because at the time I really didn't know much about Irish dance music. I had just started, I had only been a dancer for a couple of years and hadn't really listened to the music until I really met you guys. And I remember you both, separately in your interviews, talked about one of the challenges with playing for a FEIS or a major is, in a session you kind of like you play these tunes a lot of times, right? And like people kind of like almost like warm up as they go, whereas you have to have that groove and that spark right from the get-go, right? Like you have 8 bars to get those dancers excited to get going. And I always think about that, right? Like how you have to be kind of like instantly on. And, Sean, when you talk about the groove and how you feel that, I was just wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about how musicians and FEIS musicians or Irish musicians kind of learn to develop that sense of groove and that sense of drive. And Sully, you can join in here as well. I'm just kind of curious, like if you're teaching a student, right? Like how are you teaching them how to pursue that?
I'll start and then jump in, Sully, because I'm curious on your thoughts about this. You go to a FEIS these days, usually what you're going to hear is a drum machine along with the accordion or the fiddle, or the accordion and the piano, or the fiddle and the piano. But you need to be able to produce the pulse that drum machine obviously has inherently without it. Back in the day, we used to play FEISes without a drum machine. It was just a metronome that was ticking away in our ear. And in some cases you were solo accordion and that was it, right? So you had to find a way to get that pulse into the tune. And I think it's different with different instruments. Like, I can speak to the piano accordion because that's, my main melody instrument. The bellows, the thing that you're squeezing in and out, it's a wind instrument. So that's, what's pushing wind through the reeds. The way that you manipulate that in combination with how long you stay on a note, the space in the notes, actually,
Yes.
that combination is something that I focus on when I'm teaching and in my own playing. I think a good example, anybody who's heard Luke Suey play, who was my student, I mean, I probably focus as much on feel as I did anything else, particularly given that he wanted to jump into this world and he's already, in a very short space of time, really developed a mastery of that. But it's different on different instruments, obviously, like, how you get that feel on a fiddle, how you get that pulse. Again, there's going to be a relationship between the dynamic, how long you're on and off notes, how you transition between notes. But it's definitely something that I think the best, in my opinion anyway, the best FEIS musicians are extracting that from their instrument, whatever that happens to be.
Cool. Sully, can you talk a little bit about your attack on button accordion?
My perception of what Irish music and Irish dance music should sound like came from a bit of a journey that changed many times throughout my teens. So in the traditional Irish music world, on the button accordion that I play, it's a BC button accordion. For the most part, at the FLAs, the competitions, the accordions are tuned wet. So what that traditionally, most of the accordions have 4 voices in the right hand, and one of them's tuned flat, one of them's tuned sharp, and then 2 of the reeds are tuned as near to 440 as the tuner can get it. And it creates this wavy sound on each note. And what that does is it allows musicians to play, I don't want to say this with negative connotations, it allows them to play with a little bit more freedom and safety. I'll say it that way. It allows them to play slightly more loose and the tune still sounds strong. And that's how I started. And I just, as I got older and I started listening to other musicians, that's where I was exposed to a sound that I just had more connection to. And so there was a box player called Dermot Byrne who plays a tiny little accordion that only has 2 reeds, and both of his reeds are fairly dry tuned, which means they're as close to 440 as they could get it. And I just fell in love with the intricacy of his playing, because when you're playing a traditional style, it's kind of a bit more muddled, and it's beautiful in its own right, and when it's done with mastery. But I just felt more drawn to the clean, sharp 2-voice sound. Partly because then I felt you could play with rhythm and drive and subtlety a bit more. And then as I started listening to other instruments, particularly fiddle players, and did a bit of a deep dive on the detail and the fun that a fiddle player, a masterful fiddle player, can get in their tunes. I mean, if you listen to Carol Hayden, as Sean and I did on a recent car journey, he can take a melody to the stars and back and keep the tune structure the same, but the rhythms changing, the syncopations changing, the details changing, the variations. It's just mastery. And I felt that I had to come away from the trad box framework and just, so that's the starting point for me. And then jumping into the trad world, into the Irish dance world, then I was exposed to completely different sounds. You have the big musette, a piano accordion sound that I personally didn't connect to as much. But then within the different sounds in the Irish dance world, there's different styles as well that you have a connection to or a disconnect with. And some players are very linear, so everything's right, but it's almost robotic. There's not much swing and feel to it. And you like different things on different days, but if you listen to Damien McKee, for example, I call him Mr. Caramel. His music is just, it flows. I could listen to it from morning to night. And then if you listen to, there's a box player called Kevin Murphy. His music is very detailed and powerful, but slightly less swing to it. And for me, where all of the lines met in the middle was Sean O'Brien's playing. It had, for me, again, the perfect mix of swing, detail, power, drive, control. He was right there. And so I knew I wanted to kind of go down that path within the limitations of my instrument and ability, and just kind of sit in that groove. And I think Sean has created a replica very, very similar with Luke. I really feel that when I listen to Luke. He's got that sweet spot.
Yeah.
And that's just personal preference. And so that's kind of, I wanted in my music to have a bit of drive, a bit of detail, a bit of control, and a bit of flair, but always stay true to the essence. It needs good rhythm. It needs to be exciting. And the tune choice is a big one too. It needs to be, you need to have a personal connection to the tune. If you're playing a tune that you don't like, you're never going to perform it, in my opinion, in a way that is going to excite someone to dance.
I think that's actually a perfect lead into our next kind of chunk of questions here. I mean, this whole series that we're starting out with is all about creativity and innovation. And a lot of the things that you guys are talking about are the choices in your playing, right? How to create the sounds that you want, how to create that groove that you want. I think people are going to be absolutely fascinated by this, because I think the vast majority of listeners don't realize how many detailed choices, just like our dancing, right? Like, we make a lot of detailed choices about how we stylize our dancing. It's the exact same with the music. One thing that I know that I've talked about a lot with you both is kind of, these parameters for competition, right? That are put on the form of the music, right? We have a certain repertoire, like you have to know all those 40 sets. You have to be playing at certain tempos at certain times. You have a certain bar structure. I was hoping you guys could talk a little bit about how you fulfill these parameters, how you stay within these parameters for traditional, if we want to call it traditional Irish dance music, we want to call it competition music, but with staying in those parameters while making these creative choices, while innovating. I was wondering if you maybe talk about the push and pull between those two things a little bit.
My perspective on this, and it goes beyond music, is that when you have a clearly defined structure, the irony at first glance is you might think that structure is limiting. And I actually think that the structure gives you the opportunity to innovate. The structure, the clear rules are interesting to me. And I think that's part of what I've learned for myself. That's part of what's very, very appealing about this. It's like I have to play a reel at 113. It has to be this particular structure. It has to work, not just from a structural perspective, but it has to be perceived in a certain way. So if a dancer's going to get up there, they have to understand when the 8 count finishes and the 1 is there and they begin. So there's all of these little things that you've got to consider. And those rules, bounds, limitations allow for a lot of creativity. Sometimes it's you kind of need those boundaries there. Otherwise, it's like I could do anything, and that can be overwhelming and challenging in its own way. So, I've probably always been a little pushy on those boundaries. Maybe sometimes to the detriment of the product, like and particularly in my production, and that's just how I'm made.
Do you have any stories about that? You look like you're maybe thinking of something in particular.
It's more some of the tracks that I've made.
Okay.
There's actually a track on the app that I need to get rid of.
I know which one, yeah.
But nobody knows how to start to. And it was, the tune itself is actually okay. It's just what I chose to do in the backing completely confuses everybody, and I put my hand up to that. So anybody who's trying to start to Sadie's slip jig, I apologize for all attempts prior to this and moving forward.
But it's a beautifully produced track, though. Like musically, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
It is so good.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. Sometimes you break the rules and you learn why the rules are there in place. But for me, the main considerations are tune choices, and it's not even so much about the tune. For me, and this is probably more my piano player harmony hat on. You can take just about any tune and get somebody to understand what the count is in the introduction if you have the right chord structure.
Mm-hmm.
The chord structure really is the thing that leads somebody to understand, okay, here comes the 1.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes in order to, certain tunes don't lend themselves or aren't necessarily harmonically matched with a chord structure that's going to make it obvious when to start. So I'll do things like when I'm playing on my own, I have my own piano backing tracks. It's me playing piano. So there are a few tunes in there that if I was to play the chords that I really think should be beneath this tune, people may not start. But in the first 8 bars of the recording, I'll play with it, and they might be a little bit clashy, but it's to try and help the dancer understand, okay, this is it. And once they're going, then I can be a little bit looser on my chord structure. So that's one thing that I like to do. I think you can get away with tunes just about anything if you understand how to craft the harmony beneath. And then beyond that, it's, and this sort of is on the melody side, it's just variations in the melody, variations in the ornamentation, taking natural pauses and the natural dynamics and natural points of emphasis and changing it each time you play through it. Sometimes that might be constructed, and sometimes, depending on how you're feeling, you might go for something in the moment that's improvised. And that's another part of FEIS playing that we don't necessarily need to go into. But when you're sitting there for 10, 12, 14 hours, inevitably there's going to be times where you feel really on it and you feel really good. And there's other times, for whatever reason, that you don't. And so you're going to really, for your own sake and for the safety of everybody out there that you're doing a job for, you're going to stay in the box, and other times home. It's like, you know what, I'm going to push things a little bit. So it's a dynamic process, but those are a couple of ways anyway that, at least in the live setting, I play around creatively.
What were you laughing about?
Sure, I have to touch on something there. So I'll come to it though. I think a couple of points there about. I completely agree with Sean. The structure, it can be incredibly freeing from a repertoire point of view. If you know that you have 4 or 5 different tune time signatures to play with, you can build up that repertoire of tunes that you personally connect with. And then you can learn in the hall in real time, okay, people are not really connecting with this tune, and you let it fade into the background over time, or people really like this tune, I might record that at a later date, or I love the way Sean plays the chords to that tune, I'll keep that at the fore. And then just personal connection with each tune, like a phrase that we hear at the FEIS all the time is, "Oh, play us a good tune." Musicians don't tend to learn, other than set dances where we have to play the kind of the tune that the dancer wants. In our personal repertoire, you don't tend to set out to learn a tune that's a rubbish tune. You want to play tunes that you have a personal connection with, but when you really do have a personal connection with a tune, that's incredibly freeing. But the bit that made me smile is when Sean said that the limitations were freeing. I actually wrote a tune for Sean yesterday. He doesn't even know this. And I named the tune The Look of Appointment, because Sean has this little look that he does that I cherish. So, and I really do mean what I'm about to say. Sean has a level of mastery on both of the instruments that I've experienced playing with him, that when you get to that level of music, you tend to you tend to go into a flow, and so you're not consciously thinking about every finger placement. It's just muscle memory, and then a level of mastery kicks in. And so one of my real privileges in life is when I sit down next to Sean and we might play King of the Fairy set dances, and he'll have so much fun and creativity with the tune that I just sit listening to him. And then at the end of it, he kind of folds his hands and looks at the keyboard as if to say, "I was very, very naughty there." And musically, it's very, very clever, but it's got all of the bases ticked, but then there's the fun, beautiful side to hit that he's adding with his flair and control and mastery. But I wrote this tune yesterday because we're going to be doing some recording together, and I had to recognize that look that he does. But it only comes from years and years and years of really honing your craft and then developing the freedom within the framework where you can. There's been, for example, sometimes we'll play a set dance that we've played maybe 1,000 times together, and Sean will play it in a way that he's never played it before. And then we might get the same set dance again, and he'll play it different that time, and he'll play it different that time. And they're all equally as beautiful, but they have different dynamics, different flows, different pushes, different pulls. And it's just wonderful. It really, really is wonderful. Those are the days where 12 hours can feel like 5 minutes. And then Sean touched on another point there as well that's relative to like tune choice. People often see musicians in the corner and they think every day's the same, in that because you're doing the same thing, the job is the same. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest messages that people other than musicians don't understand is that every single day you play a FEIS, even when you're playing with a person you maybe have played with for 10 years, is completely different. And some days you might have been on a flight, the next day you might have eaten poorly on the plane, you might be drained, you might be stressed, whatever's happening in your personal life, and you should, in theory, play terrible that day. And then you have 6 hours where the best music falls out of you that you've had come out of you in the last 6 months. And then there are other days where you sit down and you've slept well, you've eaten well, you're rested, and you just can't get it going. And on those days, it is a very frightening experience because you want to give every single dancer your very best. But this might be the world stage and you know you're not on fire. And so suddenly a tune that you would be in your safety net of tunes is challenging and frightening, and you're questioning every 8 bars. Am I on the intro? Is this the last 8 bars? A day can feel like a week then, and it really it really can prove challenging, even when you're sitting next to someone that is amazing. For example, this year Sean and I played the Mid America Eruptus, and jet lag hit me. And for me personally, this is one of the most dangerous ones, jet lag, because you'll get to mid-afternoon and your brain just goes, it's sleep time.
Yeah.
Coffee doesn't help in that situation. Sugar doesn't help in that situation. And you've got to play 50 sets correctly. It really is a challenge.
Wow.
It really is difficult.
How do you work on the mental side of that? I'm curious. I mean, like, are there things that you can do? Are there strategies that you guys have found or adapted that have made a difference in those moments? Or is it just experience and kind of learning how to plow through?
I think, firstly, it's a phenomenon that everybody experiences that I've spoken to. And it's not one that's readily apparent until you do it. And it can hit you in any number of ways. It can hit when you're playing something complex or something simple, something that 99 times out of 100 you wouldn't even have to think about to play. But you sit there in that context, in that moment, that far into the day, and for whatever reason it slips in. And I think everybody has their own version of it, and there are layers to it. I think partly it's experience. You just learn that that's there, and the more that inevitably you face a particular challenge that has a certain flavor, you learn something about yourself, and you learn what works and what doesn't. I think I know for myself, and this is actually quite a personal thing. There's a, it used to flare up more for me than it does now. And that has nothing to do actually with music. That's my own personal journey and some stuff I've discovered about myself, and in particular how I'm perceived by others. And that's a whole personal therapy rabbit hole. But it used to really show up in this environment that already inherently has this thing where you can, one day you can be on fire in the way Sally described, no sleep. Maybe you went out and had a few pints the night before, and you think I shouldn't be playing well today, and you come out the next day and play the best music you have. It can just come upon you. But it's like facing anything in life that's challenging. Those moments where you're uncomfortable, you learn ways to deal with it, to breathe, to acknowledge it, to relax your shoulders, particularly when you're playing an accordion, to move into simpler waters when it comes to the tune choices. Maybe if you're with a partner, like Sully described, there was a day at the Mid America, the jet lag got him, and it was one tune that triggered it, and that's how it seemed to me. But I knew then, and could kind of try and support the best that I could, until he sort of emerged from it, and vice versa. But yeah, it's a phenomenon that unless you do that job, it just looks like we're sitting there doing the same thing, albeit playing different tunes. It's like, and you can be having the range of experiences you can be having sitting there in that chair, even within a day. You might play amazing in the morning, and you sit down after lunch, and for whatever reason, this thing sitting on top of you feels like a foreign object. It's weird.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And there's different levels of risk in the pairings too. So lots of musicians pair up now at the major events, and they play what we tend to call it a FEIS machine, which is a keyboard, where the instrument largely provides the rhythm, the chords, and the tune. Or you can achieve the sounds of all three on the one instrument, but then there's a melody player that plays with them, and that provides a safety net, because if one makes a little mistake or forgets, the other one can play it a little bit louder for a bar or two and just push through, and then they can resync. But Sean and myself very often kind of we play a different style of pairing, where Sean will always play with a piano player, and so that means that all of the pressure for the melody is on Sean. And whilst I think we both agree we prefer that style of music, it is a lot more like white knuckling it. You there is no room for you have to find ways through. And for me, like Sean said, you just develop personal coping mechanisms. Mine is largely now through reassurance that we've done this 1,000 times. Like, we've experienced jet lag before, we've experienced tiredness, we've experienced the highs and lows of this. Like, you're going to be fine. and leaning on the partner, Sean really helped me through that day Mid-America. He was making me laugh. He was keeping me engaged. He was chatting to me in between sets. He was providing comfort. And you do need someone to lean on to. That's a big factor.
Sally, when you said sometimes you're white knuckling it, I'm curious, when you guys are going into a major, for example, or any fesh, I guess, anytime you get up there to play, is there some sort of thrill ride anticipation that you experience? Because so my experience with you guys largely, other than coming up, listening to you play while my kids were dancing, is now that we work together on FEIStv, and there's thousands of things going on, and then you guys are like, well, I'm off, I gotta go play. So that's one thing, but let's talk about sort of how does it feel to run into it? My only experience is in theater and playing in rock bands, and I always got excited. I didn't get stage fright, but there was always some energy that was pushing me forward, knowing that I was going to be participating in this thing that people were going to be listening to and participating in, and I was going to be collaborating with people, and it was exciting. So does that drive you guys in advance of starting playing?
For me, it's I look forward to it, and it depends on the setting and who I'm playing with. It's like Sully, I get to play, if I'm lucky, 6 days a year. I mean, hope in the future I'd like that to be more. So obviously that's, I know there's a good musical connection there, and I do really, really look forward to it. It's kind of the same, a lot of All Islands and Worlds and Nationals. I get to play with Francis Ward. He's my main go-to. I'm on box, he's on piano. I love playing with Francis. He's an exceptional musician, and so I'm excited to return to that. I think though, because it's usually a long haul, even if it's just a day, 10, 12 hours, you're about to, it's not like you're doing a 40-minute gig, right? Where it's like we've gone away and we've practiced these things and we're super excited about them, and we know exactly what track 1 is like and track 2 and track 3, and there might be a little bit of room for creativity within that. This is like, okay, yes, I might have some new tunes or what have you. It's more like settling in, and there is an excitement, and there's sort of I like the whole, the almost unpredictable nature of what's going to come today. That's interesting to me, and particularly when I'm playing with somebody that I trust. So if I'm playing with Sully, and I know he has got his side of things down pat, even if he's not feeling great, it's still going to be an amazing product. Same with Francis, right? But I don't know what tunes he's going to choose throughout the day. I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't know how the crowd's going to respond. I don't know what's going to happen on stage. There's obviously the dancing. That's why we're there. So it's sort of this slow burn. Whereas with a if I'm going onto a stage show or something, it's like there's that kind of fluttery anticipation of, hey, we're about to go on stage. This is a different thing. It's like there's this warmth for me, looking forward to this. It could be a tough day. I might step off the stage at the end of the day and go, "Whew, that was hard work."
Yeah.
But that's also part of it. In a weird way, I like that. It's like going. I'm sure I've never run a marathon, but I can imagine running a marathon. Running a marathon is not easy, right? But there's a deep satisfaction that comes from I ran the marathon. And then there's going to be parts of the marathon where you're flying and you're feeling great, and you're like, oh, I'm just in a flow here. And there's other points where the body's going to be fighting you. But at the end, you had an experience that was full and enriching. And in a weird way, one day when I run a marathon, I'll let you know how they compare. Sally, I think you've done a marathon or a half marathon or a few of them. So maybe there's some parallels, but that's more how I feel about it, I guess.
Yeah.
For me, similar to what Sean said, I really, really look forward to the day in different ways, depending on who I'm playing with. When I'm playing with Sean, I wake up, I'm excited at breakfast. Everyone knows I'm excited at breakfast. And in those situations, the fesh is largely happening outside of our bubble. that's how I feel about it. So me and Sean sit next to each other, and let me put it to you this way: we were playing the Kogel World Championships a few years ago, and it was early afternoon, and we were waiting for the hall to get going. We were on stage, the judges were sitting down, and we were waiting for the afternoon to start. And Sean turned to me and he said, "Do you not think it's wild that we don't know what's about to happen? Like, we don't know what dances they're
Right,
going to ask for. We don't know what tunes we're going to play. And this is going to go on for hours and hours and hours and hours. We don't know what's going to..." And when you're playing with someone you trust and you really appreciate their music, it's joyous. And I get excited like it's Christmas morning. And on those days, that's a lot of people would find that incredibly sad. But I have to be honest, I really do. But then there's other pockets of the year that you get excited in different ways because the other person is buzzing in different ways. Like when you play with Brian O'Sullivan, his passion for Irish dance music runs so deep, but there's another layer to it. He loves the marathon aspect of it. So sometimes we'll be at a CRN all worlds, 17 hours in, 9 coffees down, 2 lunches, 4 breakfasts, and he gets in this stride where he loves the endurance aspect of it, and it's almost like his effort level he just gets in this zone, and he doesn't want life to creep back in. He loves that bubble, and that's thrilling. But yeah, I really do. When you're playing with someone that you have a personal connection with and you love their music, I really do get excited for it.
I think it was Sully that you told me this, and I think it was at the 2017 Nationals where I met you. You told me that you like to bring in a few new tunes every time you came to play a major, just to keep your repertoire fresh. Is that something that you still practice? And also, and this is for both of you, both for composition and for just finding new tunes, where do you find them and where do you get your inspiration from? And what's that process like?
Me personally, I just do it out of respect to the musician that I'm playing with. Like I don't have the ability to back chords. I'm just a melody player. So when you're playing with someone that has a real knowledge of music, I like to give them the opportunity to try out new things and like it. So it's not the same thing. You're not just rinse and repeat every single fesh. And I'm a bit of a tune addict. Like I still enjoy learning tunes. I still enjoy connecting with new tunes and composing new tunes. And it's my sad love affair, and I always will have that.
That's cool.
Yeah, my wife comes in sometimes, and I'm hiding from the kids on the downstairs toilet practicing. And
That's a new one.
that's my happy safe space.
Is that how you practice too, Sean?
On the downstairs toilet.
Yeah.
No, the piano accordion's too too big. It's too big for the downstairs toilet. Button accordion's just right, and the piano's definitely too big. Yeah, I try to keep the repertoire moving. It does get a little bit tricky when the repertoire gets to a certain point in size. And inevitably tunes start to kind of drop off a little bit. It's not that you can't play them anymore, but when your repertoire is fairly big and you go and play even a 2-day fest, you might go there and not repeat a tune, and there might be tunes that you don't touch even within that repertoire, right? So then maybe if you've got a fest a week or 2 weeks later, then you play that tune. But inevitably that means certain tunes only get played once a month if you're lucky. So then when you go to a major and you've got 150, 200 on stage and you're playing a set of 100 reels, and maybe you're having one of those days where you're feeling not so great, but you want to go through and not repeat a tune, maintenance becomes an issue, or it becomes a factor, I should say. So inevitably, if you bring a new tune in that you really feel passionate about, you're excited about for the reason Sully said, like you want to you don't want your piano player to be playing exactly the same thing every single time, so it gets stale. Then inevitably certain tunes are going to drop off. So yeah, and I source tunes from all over the place. Like I write a lot, obviously for the app. I don't always learn the tunes that I write. A lot of the time, I'll score them for the purposes of production, and they won't get played again. But sometimes I'll write one that I'm like, yeah, I really want to bring this into the repertoire. Other times I'll hear tunes Sully's recorded or somebody else or people out in the trad world. I hear something on Spotify. I'm like, wow, that's an amazing tune. Just wherever it comes in. Sometimes I'll go and trawl some of the online session.org and some of those sites that have traditional tunes and people are posting to all the time. It's just the tunes find you in interesting and unexpected ways. And when one hits you that you have that feeling for, you got to go and sit down at your instrument and learn this thing. That's the feeling.
I couldn't agree more. There's a couple of things I need to add to what Sean was saying. This is how sad I am with tunes and that connection, that feeling of connection. Even on the app, I've been in business with Sean for years and I'd listened to all of his music. There was a car journey about 6 months ago or a year ago where I just happened to scroll to the championship length slipjigs and I put Sean's, he did an entire album of championship length slipjigs. Now, if there was a video camera in that car that could monitor my experience of that set of slipjigs, I ended up shouting at the phone and the player in the car because it was the best thing. Some of the tunes on there, the Thorn Tree, the way Sean played that, Inspector Hector's, I listened to it on repeat for about an hour to a couple of tunes. It was just, I'm tapping my foot, I'm like gripping the steering wheel. And when you connect with the tune like that, as Sean says, you have to either pull over, you just have to learn the tune immediately. But then another thing Sean said there about, and I'm going back to why I used the term white knuckling it earlier, Kristo, is because as Sean said, when your repertoire gets bigger over the years, and sometimes in a month you might not touch a tune in your repertoire for a month or 2 or 3 months. And so in every musician's repertoire, there's a safety net of tunes that they can go back to and they should be fine. And then there's a layer on the outside that are like, oh, I'm feeling okay today. I'll go for some of those too. And then everyone has this layer where there's this body of tunes that are daring. I'll go for it today. But why it's white knuckling is in the first bar or so, you know whether you have it in you that day, but you still have 48 bars or 46 bars left. And sometimes that really is white knuckling it. When you know in the first couple of bars that you don't have it in you, but you still have to keep going for another 46 bars, it is.
And where there's a unique experience in that is if you're the piano player who also plays tunes, and the accordion player beside you is like, okay, I'm going to go for this. It's risky. And you can tell whether in that first bar how it's going to go. But you're just like, okay, I'm just going to beat this piano real hard in time for the next 48 bars, and we'll see where this goes. Yeah, it can be a lot of fun.
That's wild. So, Sully, you mentioned the app. I mentioned FEIStv earlier. I know you guys are both affiliated with dance schools. Did you ever think that this, when you were starting out playing, like this was going to become so much more than music?
So there's kind of a couple of things in there. There's the specific businesses themselves and what's manifested there, and then there's something beneath that. And for me personally, like I said, how I got into this was seeing Jerry and Seamus play, and without knowing anything about it, I just bang, hit by a bolt of lightning. I have to do this thing. And you don't really choose what you fall in love with, right? It's not really a choice. Whether it's a person or a thing, it's like, I just love this thing. And for me personally, I, for the longest time, even though I continued to do this thing that I loved, there was a part of me in my head that thought this is not a serious thing to pursue, actually, from a career perspective. And I spent many, many years, doing various things, including other types of music that I also loved, but not maybe quite in the way that I love this thing. And for whatever reason, I had that perception there. One day I kind of allowed myself to own the fact that I just want to do this thing. I love this, not just the music side of it. I love the whole art form. I love the dance art form. And I love the culture of this whole thing. And I allowed myself to own that. And for me personally, at that point, that was in and around 2010, 2011, I started producing more music in earnest. And I think that decision there led to a lot of things that happened down the line, which included the conversation Sully and I had in Phoenix, Arizona in the middle of 2017, which was the genesis of the FEIS app idea. And then the creation of that has then, created opportunities to create FEIStv and all kinds of things. So, I mean, the dance school thing for me personally, like that's my wife, Barbara Blakey O'Brien. Like she has been teaching now for 25 years. She's an incredible dance teacher and choreographer. It's just that I married a dance teacher and, was asked for my opinion at times and hopefully sometimes it's useful. And I mean, she's really she's the driving force and the genius behind all of that. But it, when it comes to FEIS app and FEIStv and such, I didn't envision it, but funnily enough, when I that was in the beginning, and when I shifted that perspective and owned, you know what, I want to do this thing. I actually just love it, and I need to stop rationalizing that. And I actually don't care whether people understand that or think that's silly or think that whatever they think. It's like, I love this thing. It seems to bring joy to people. It brings value to their lives. And for me now, these businesses are about creating value within this particular community. It's like, how can we make people's lives better? How can we solve problems? And for me, that stems from really owning that thing that I have this impulse to move towards, which is Irish music and dance. So I could never have imagined that this is what would have manifest, and who knows what's to come as well. Because really it's happened in a relatively short amount of time, actually. But I'm just incredibly grateful to be doing stuff that I love and with people that I love and with a community that I love. So
yeah, I couldn't have anticipated that we would be able to develop two businesses born out of our love for Irish dance music, and see it grow the way it has, and see people connect with those businesses the way they have. I would never have been able to anticipate it. But the journey for me was connecting with people that I trust and love and admire, and then seeing where we could take that. Sean has helped me incredibly in my personal life, and then we kind of used our bond and our brotherhood to kind of connect our musical journeys and then see what value that we could give to people. And feel so blessed, so blessed. From a practical point of view as well, it's the little parts of this journey that we've ended up on. Like when we released the track, thousands and thousands of young people move. That they get health benefits from that. They have personal connections that are shaped sometimes by one track that Sean releases or some of our artists release. And I feel so proud of that. And then when you're working with people you trust and love, you're able to build such a strong foundation. The foundations of the business are so strong and so resilient that they can almost withstand anything as long as they continue to generate value. Like FEIStv, for example. children dance on a safe platform that is run by directors with incredible morals and incredible integrity. And so that's another part that I'm incredibly proud of. Like, we work very hard to provide a framework that not just delivers an image, but delivers a level of safety for these dancers. And that is built off of the relationship I have with Sean and Cormac. And the same for Feshat, the relationship I have with Sean and Anthony. So the relationships were central to me, and we took that and a love of art, and I could have never anticipated where it's gone to. It's incredible, and as Sean said, where we get to go.
That's a great way to sum it up. I want to ask one more question, just because we're talking about the impact that not just your playing and your collaborating, but that these businesses have on people and kids in particular. I assume we see a lot of dancers move towards music and musicians move towards dance. What do you tell young dancers when they express an interest in playing music like you guys do?
I think what I mentioned before about kind of owning the things that you love. If you have an impulse to move towards something, move towards something. That impulse is everything. I think that impulse, it might be getting a bit philosophical here, but for me, that impulse comes from an intelligence that's deeper than what's in your mind. You know, the mind is this computer that can analyze and figure stuff out and carry information and solve problems. But there's a wisdom that comes from down deep in your heart, in your gut, and that type of impulse to move towards this thing, or I love this thing, or I have an interest in this thing. That's what comes first. And then there's the mind goes in there and says, oh, should I be doing that? And how do I do that? And it can be super useful. It's like, how do I solve that problem? How do I learn that thing? But it can also step in and go, it can find reasons why you shouldn't be doing that thing. And that's sometimes very wise too. I don't want to say just go in, you know, and ignore any thoughts that you have about a thing. But if you have an impulse to move towards music, it was like Luke, and I'll use Luke as an example. Luke's just turned 18. He had this beat up white accordion at Studio to Stage many years ago. I think there's a picture floating around out there of Luke as this little kid holding this white accordion, the straps dangling on the ground, and he's with Anton and Sully and myself, and I think one or two other people. And this was, many years ago, pre-COVID, and he had this impulse, and I said to his mum, message me, and we'll get lessons. Just do it, right? Like, if the thing that you're moving towards isn't going to hurt you or hurt somebody else, move
Right.
towards it. Follow the impulse, and kind of surrender to that. And I mean, look where it's got him. But I think taking action and moving in the direction of the thing that you're drawn to, whether that's Irish dances and music or music and Irish dance, do that. But anything in your life, like that impulse is not silly. It's a deep wisdom that goes beyond any definition or anything that your mind is going to reduce it to. So follow it, see where it takes you. Yeah.
Sully, is that what was going on in your mind when you were the little kid and not telling anybody about this passion that you had and just going heads down into it?
Well, it's mad, isn't it? I like to add on to what Sean would say, like, I think to anyone that has an interest in playing Irish dance music, it will choose you if it's meant for you. Everything in my life tried to pull me away from music.
Mm-hmm.
I boxed at quite a high amateur level, and I had to make a choice there. I was living in a part of the world where no one had Irish music, and certainly Irish dance music just wasn't a thing. And even when I was learning the instrument, Irish dance music, I didn't know Irish dance existed. And then throughout my Irish dance music journey, there have been many times where life has tried to put you on a different path, whether that's because you try a new career or you try something. But ultimately, I think this thing will choose you and will suck you in. And as Sean says, surrender to it and own that choice. But for me, it hasn't been a choice for me. It is what I'm here to do. Other than be a parent and be a friend and be a husband, like the one constant since I was 11 years old has been playing music. And I really hope that stays until I'm not here anymore.
We do too. Thanks very much, guys.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you guys so much.
It's our pleasure. Yeah, I love the conversation, guys. Brilliant.
Us too. It's great.
And best of luck to you both for this podcast. I hope you have many years of success.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
We're jazzed.
This wasn't on my bingo card 20 years ago either. So.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure down the road we only covered a fraction of some of the guiding questions that we sent you. I'm sure down the road we'll do a lot more with conversations with you guys about music.
I'm looking forward to the next one.
Anytime.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you both so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to the FEIStv podcast. Our technical producer is Kristo Sween. Our managing producer is Julia Topper. Theme music composed and performed by Sean O'Brien. New episodes drop on the 17th of every month.